Hi, this tutorial is my half double crochet hat pattern. You'll need a scissors to cut off your yarn. You'll need a yarn needle to weave in your ends. A stitch marker or a row counter is optional. You will also need a closed-in stitch marker because you need it to stay stationary. You don't want this marker to move. You will also need an open stitch marker that you can move around the hat. We're going to use this one to mark each row as we go around, and we'll use this one when we're finished increasing the hat so we can have an easy way to measure from the increases to the end of the hat. I'm going to be using a 7.5 or a 7.0 millimeter crochet hook. You can easily switch up to a L 8.0 or down to a K, which is 6.5. Now, if your gauge is different than mine, you can easily use a smaller hook size. And using a smaller hook size will also make your hat smaller, make your stitches tighter. This hat, you can customize it very easily. Now you're going to basically just making a slip knot. This is a magic circle. You want the working side of the yarn to cross over the tail side, and then you're going to want the working yarn to come through your circle. And then you're going to want to secure this. A lot of people don't secure it, but I like to secure it. Pull that tight. Now, if you're uncomfortable with a magic circle, you can go ahead and chain 2, and then you're going to single crochet into the very first stitch, which is basically the same as this, only smaller. But here we want to chain 1 because we're going to be making single stitches into this. And then we're going to put 7 single crochet into this loop. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now if you're using bigger yarn or a larger needle than this, I suggest you go ahead and make 6. I just did 6. I need 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. My mind was somewhere else. There's your 7th. You'd stop at 6 if you were using a bigger hook. And then you want to cinch this circle shut. And with a lot of patterns, they mark the very first stitch. Well, instead of pulling out your marker every time you need to go into that stitch, you can go ahead and put it on the loop on your hook, because this will be the top of the next stitch. Now we're not going to close off. We're just going to go ahead and go into the first stitch with a half double crochet. And we're going to put 2 in each of the single stitches all the way around. Squirrels are running around the attic of my mind making a mess. Why is this yarn splitting? It wasn't splitting the last hat. I guess because it's on camera and things like to be different. And as you see, I'm just knitting over my tail so I don't have to weave it in later. If you want to go ahead and count your stitches, normally I count as I go along. That's your first stitch with the marker in it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That means we've got 2 more stitches to go because we'll have 14 at the end of the round. 1, 2, 3. Now this is when this will start getting in the way. If you would like to go ahead and cut this tail now, you can, but I'm just going to keep working over it. Now here's where you take your marker out, because that's the end of row 2. Go ahead and put 2 on there. I should have done it. And we're fixing to start round 3. And if you notice in this little repeat, here you're going to notice in a little bit, your repeat will have exactly the same amount of stitches as your round is. Like your repeat here only has 2. So that's round 2. If you have to lay it down and pick it up, you can tell where you are by how many stitches are in your repeat. It's 1, 2, and you're going to just put 1 stitch in your next one for a total of 3. And that's your repeat. You're going to do this all the way around. 2 and 1. That's where your first stitch goes, and that's where your second stitch goes. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. In some hat patterns, they'll have your increase at the end of your repeat, and that helps when you connecting to make it a little bit more smooth. But here you're going in a spiral, you're not connecting, so it really doesn't matter. And it just makes it easier to keep track of if you do the first. Because that way you're going 1, 2. Both of those are together. And then you count 3. 1, 2. Now with here, with these markers, you don't have to use what I'm using. You can use just a piece of scrap yarn. As long as you can hold this particular, what did I do there? Okay, I did something wrong there. Let's take that out. You probably seen what I did. Wasn't paying attention. Okay, that's what I did. That wasn't pulled all the way through. So when I made my last stitch, it just all combined and connected. Now we can put that back in there. The next row 4 is the same as row 3, except 1 more stitch. 2, 3, 4. And every row from here on out will be the same. You'll add 1 more to your repeat. And it's easy to tell where you are by how many stitches are in the repeat. 2, 3, 4. If you get good at reading your stitches, here you can see that's your increase from the row below, and there's only 1 stitch in between your increases. So that's 3, you're on row 4. That's handy to know if you happen to have a disturbance and you've got to lay down your knitting or your crochet, sorry about that, to to run check something else, you can just come back and look at what you've got to know where you are. I like to watch videos and listen to audiobooks when I do this, and my mind gets distracted real easy, so knowing where I'm at, being able to read it really helps me out a lot. I don't really have to keep track of every row. I can just count my stitches. Now, I don't know why, but row 5 is my favorite row. If I'm making a preemie hat, I'll usually stop at row 4 or row 5 and go ahead and start on the straight part. Now look at there. I forgot to move it. It goes right there. Too busy yapping and not paying attention. It's 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess I just like numbers that are divisible by 5 for some odd reason. And I like even numbers as well. That's one of those weird facts about me. I did 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I apologize for the length of this video because I am going to work the whole hat with you. Now, I may go ahead and make a baby hat out of this, so I'll stop a little bit early. Normally, I go 7 rows for my head, which is 21 inches in my gauge. I'm just making all kinds of mistakes so you can see how to correct it, aren't I? Where my mind was, I was thinking I didn't get out my measuring tape so I could show you how that's done. Because if you went and downloaded that hat chart, it will show the crown is supposed to be a certain amount of inches for each size. And normally, my round 6 or my round 7 is 6 inches across. I'm sorry for the noise I'm about to make. I'm getting my tape measure out. Now you would measure from there to there. This is just 4 1/4 inches. We can always move to this one just to be sure. And that shows it's actually 4 inches. Because sometimes that part right there will throw it off. I usually like to go 6 inches. Now some of them show 7, but the way I like the fit of it, I usually just go 6. But we're going to go ahead and stop right here. You would continue on making more stitches in each repeat. So in row 6 you'd have 6 stitches, which would be the 2 and then 4. and for row 7 it'd be one more stitch. Now when you're stopping, what I like to go ahead and do is put this stationary marker around this last stitch. That way you can see this was the end of the row. So if you want to count rows from here on up, you just count on this side of the marker. And from here on, you stop increasing, and you just put 1 half double crochet in each stitch. What's that? Is that hair? My hair gets on everything. I've always been a heavy shedder my whole life. But I've always had a lot of hair. My dad used to tell me he didn't know how I kept any in my head since it was always falling out. Now you would look at your chart and you would see how long this part of the hat needs to be. It's again like 6 or 7 inches. You could also measure from the top of your head and bring it down to where you want the hat to fall, and that would be a good measurement to go by. Now normally I like to do, in my adult hat, I like to do 10 rows of half double crochet in every stitch. But this one I will probably only do about 8. Now it's shocking that how big kids' heads can be. Like all my grandchildren can wear my adult hat. Now normally this is where you would move up, but on the straight part I like to do 2 rows. It just helps me keep track of where I am. And I just flip that over and go into the next stitch. Excuse me, I need to get more yarn. It's quiet in my house today. I've had my grandchildren, I've had one of them every day. My middle child, my younger daughter, has 5. So we've been getting one of them to keep them from driving her crazy. So I've had a grandchild every day. And this past weekend I had the 2 younger ones. They like to come over every other weekend. The 3 older ones, they are my son-in-law's children from a previous relationship. But I've had them forever. They're mine. There's no difference between them and the younger 2, which my daughter gave birth to. But when the older ones go to their mamas, the younger ones come to my house. So my daughter and her husband can have some time just to be together and work on their marriage. Because they started their marriage with 3 children, so they need that time. And Papa and I are fortunate enough to be able to do it, and we love being around them, so it's not a hardship. She's never asked me to do it. It's something we've always volunteered to do because we just wanted to be with our grandbabies. But it's been fun this past week having the older ones. I get them occasionally, but just not quite as often because they spend time with their mom. Okay, now you want to stop right before. You don't want to stop here. You want to stop right before it, because this one, that's the stitch it's going to be laying over here. So you go ahead, move your marker, and you've got 2. Now you keep on doing this till you get the length, and then I'm going to go ahead and do it with you, but you're going to end by doing 2 rows of single crochet. That's what I love about this particular hat pattern. You can use sport weight yarn and a smaller hook like a G or an H, which would be a 4.5 or a 5 millimeter. And sometimes I will even use a 5.5 millimeter because I like a loose fabric, especially when you've got the stiffer yarns, because a lot of yarn gets donated to my charity group, and some of it is a little on the hard side. So we'll go ahead and work with it, and using a bigger hook will just give a softer fabric. Hold on. Sorry about that. I chose today to record because I had the house to myself. I wasn't even thinking that my husband would call and interrupt my video. While I had the video off anyway, I went ahead and crocheted just about all the rows that I needed. I am on my 8th row right now. Sorry about that if you can hear my dogs hollering in the background. They're howling. Ambulance or a siren just went by, and they just love to raise Cain. It tickles me, I'm sorry. Uh-oh, now you probably heard that one. But this is row 8. And how you count is you go beside of your marker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and row 8. Now we're almost done. And I just want to show you. It's also good to have that on there when you take your hook out. If you go ahead and flatten it, you can see that looks about the right size. We're going to do 2 rows of single crochet. Let's go ahead and measure that. That's 6.5. It'll probably be 7. No, wait. Yeah. Probably be 6.5 inches by the time we put our border on. Get that out of the way. Now our border is just a single crochet. We're going to do 2 rows of single crochet. Now if you want to spice up your hat, maybe if you've got a little girl, you could put a 3rd row of single crochet and do like a picot edging, or you can go with a crab stitch. Crab stitch I think looks good on boys and girls, but normally I don't put it on there. I just make it very simple. Not that charity babies hats, they still need to look good and be nice, but I'm wanting to get as many done as I possibly can. So I usually leave out the fancy stuff and just go for simple. And my dearest Paulette, if you see this, I did get the message on Messenger, but I didn't want to take my phone out of my hookup for recording because I was afraid when I put my phone back in the contraption, it wouldn't be in the exact same spot. But I will get to you after this video is done. Just flip that over and go into the next stitch. So I love this pattern. It's just so easy to keep track of where you are at. Where I got the basic pattern for this hat was Military Wife on Ravelry. It's called the Big Hook Beanie. I've changed it up from where she had it, but the basic principles are in that hat if you want to go ahead and download that pattern. I think she used a M hook. And I used her pattern for the longest time. Okay, now you've got your 2 rows. There's your first single crochet row. There's your second single crochet row. Now when you want to tie it off, you would go straight in there and pull it through both. You'd close it with a slip stitch. And I like to put one more in for good measure. And then you're going to cut your yarn, leaving a tail for sewing in your end. Now a lot of women, they will pull it through like that, but I don't like to do that because it leaves a little tip that it's hard to hide. Go ahead and remove your markers. And you grab your yarn needle. Get rid of that. Now how I like to do is I like to fold the yarn over my needle and pinch it, and then you could just let go of it a little at a time and it just goes right up in there nice and pretty without splitting any yarns. There goes my husband again, but luckily it seems to be muted. I hope my whole video isn't muted. And then you go through there, and then you come right back into where you came out of and back down into it. And if you look up here, that hides where that stitch is, so you don't even see it. And then you just weave it in as you normally would, going back and forth. And then you need to grab something else so that you're not pulling it right back through all the same stitches. Okay, I didn't cut a long enough tail to go back through there again. And then you just cut your end off. And then you have a nice little baby beanie. I want to go ahead and show you some of the preemie baby beanies I've made this week using the exact same pattern. There's a pink one. I used a sport weight yarn and a size 5.0. And here I had a little bit of different yarn for this one. And then I used this yarn. Now somewhere, I don't see it, but I've got one that I put this yarn and this yarn, and I held it together, made it a beanie about this size. It might be in my bag down here where I keep them. Yep. There's a bigger beanie, just like the one I just made with sport yarn. And here is the beanie where I use the two together, and this is almost a regular size. A small adult could fit in this hat here, because it's just like using worsted weight yarn number 4. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and you're able to make all kinds of hats now, whether they're for people you love or for people who just are in need. You guys have a great day, and stay safe. Bye-bye.